Well, good evening, everybody. Kevin Crouch here with South Metro Weather. It took me a minute to get this set up. I was distracted doing other things, but we do now have a severe thunderstorm warning, including parts of Johnson, Hill, and Bosque counties, also back in Somerville and Hood. This is the storm we're watching right now. You can see a pretty decent outflow boundary with that. That is going to push eastward. Let me actually get this in motion for you. Let me get that position where I can actually see that. And here's the storm. So this has picked up pace here. It's moving very slowly before, but it is moving further east, and so the old warning is gone there. But now we do have more storms moving to the east, east-southeast here, and really the heaviest part of the storm near Glen Rose there as far as the precipitation. I think we probably have some small hail throughout this storm. Gusty winds have kind of been the main feature of this storm. If we take a look across a couple of things. First, let's look at the velocity view. You can see very strong winds right there on the Somerville Hood County line. So let's kind of zoom in on that a little bit. And okay, might be in the kitchen. They're somewhere. So near Fort Spunky there, that's got to be one of my favorite town names right there. Pecan Plantation, Georges Creek, Nemo, and Rainbow. So this area right here could be 60 to 70 mile per hour winds here. And let me remind you that 74 miles per hour, I believe that's where 74, 75, that's Category 1 hurricane. So when you hear people say hurricane force winds, you might be talking 75 miles per hour. So not anything too terribly crazy, but 70 mile per hour winds, that is severe weather criteria. In fact, 58 or more. So generally people say 60 mile per hour or more, but it's above 58 miles per hour is pretty much what you're looking at in terms of those severe winds. Small hail possible here too. In fact, severe hail possible. I would venture to even say at this point that we could be looking can't get my phone to cooperate with me here. We could be looking at nickel-sized hail. In fact, let's double check that, see if that's been updated by the National Weather Service. They mentioned nickel-sized hail earlier, so let me see. Oh, there's quite a bit of wording there. So yeah, so 65 mile per hour wind gusts. That's why I say 60 to 70, and then nickel-sized hail possibly. I know that there's a lot of folks that want this storm. You want those rains to reach your area. Let's go back down to VIL real quickly. I don't see anything major in terms of hail, possibly some near the Granbury area, but not a major hail situation from what I can tell at the moment. But we could see that intensify fairly soon. But as I said, I know that there's several of you that would love for the rain to come. The two things we're going to have to watch here is one, this storm, obviously, and we will watch to see over the next several minutes if this storm is going to maintain its severity. A lot of the time you have these storms in the summer that will intensify briefly and then weaken. This one's held on for a while, so it's doing fairly well. And then we have that outflow boundary. Let me adjust this over a little bit. We have this outflow boundary that is headed east, moving towards Joshua, Keene, Cleburne, Rio Vista there, kind of continue on to the east, and that could spark more storms. At very least, it's going to bring some cooler air, and temperatures are not bad right now. This really is not a bad situation to be in for July. Now, obviously, if you're looking at damage from those winds, that could be a problem. But overall, for the right in the middle of July, not too bad to get these rains. It is a good thing too that this storm has sped up. That's going to kind of reduce our flooding risk with this storm. So overall, going to continue on to the east, and we're in a good spot. We're in a pretty good position here for the moment with this storm, like I say, except for the fact that you could potentially have some damaging winds between 60 and 70 miles per hour. So this warning actually goes for about another 45 minutes or so till 7:45. So that's how long we will be looking at this storm. Of course, we will get the sun going down here over the course of the next hour and a half. So we could see some weakening there as well. As we lose daytime heating, that could impact some of these storms, could reduce some of that intensity. As we go through time, we will find that out. There are times, though, when we don't always depend on daytime heating. We could see these maintain their strength because just remember we are looking at a cold front that moved through the area. So the cold air going on the surface and then the warm air moving above it, sometimes that is enough to keep lifting these storms as well. But the good news is that we're not really looking at much of a tornado threat today. We've had a few people ask about that. Not really looking at much of a tornado threat. Strong winds and some hail are really going to be the biggest, I think, threats from these storms. We kind of look across our area. There's not much else happening. Most of the activity we had move on to the east. We do have some to our west, a little storm there near Eastland, some more activity near Abilene, and then the majority of that moving towards south of Brownwood there. But one lone storm there now over north of Sulphur Springs, closer to the Arklatex. There we do have a few other stronger storms, but for our area, really not much. Just that one storm. Now, this outflow boundary is headed towards Fort Worth, towards Burleson, Joshua, Cleburne, Keene, and Rio Vista there. So through Tarrant and Johnson counties, we could see that create more storms as we go. I think the longer it moves east, the farther it gets away from the parent storm, the less likely it is because, again, we are losing daytime heating, and for our area, we've really not had that much heating to begin with. We're in the 80s, and so we're looking at a pretty good temperature right now. Feels pretty nice outside. It has felt pretty nice outside throughout most of the day. And I'm seeing now that, let me see if they've updated that here. Okay, this has been updated now. They are now looking at winds of 70 miles per hour possible, damage threat considerable. So these are tags that they now put on these severe thunderstorm warnings. And so 70 mile per hour winds are possible with this storm and the damage threat, considerable damage possible. So 70 mile per hour wind gusts and nickel-sized hail. The hail threat really is not a huge deal at this point. The main threat with this storm is going to be the winds. So definitely looking at a wind problem with this storm. We're looking at 70 mile per hour winds. So it was 65 a few minutes ago. They've upgraded that since. Let's take another look at the velocity view here. Let's look at the trends. And here's that wind core right there where Hood, Somervell, and Johnson counties come together. So that's west of Cleburne. Let's get a little bit closer in, kind of see where we are dealing with this. So near Bono, right over, again, I love this name, right over Fort Spunky, just north of Georges Creek. So west of Bono and Lebanon. So that's where we're seeing these storms produce most of the wind here. So that bright green, that is where the core of the strongest winds are right now. And it looks like it's holding that intensity. We'll see how much longer that goes. And looks like we are looking at a little bit of a hail core there possibly. This could be hail or just very strong winds. We see this combination of those increasing winds and the very heavy precipitation. My guess is we're probably looking at a downburst or microburst of sorts from this storm. So if that is the case, we are going to see a big push of heavy rain, possibly some small hail, and those very strong winds from that storm. And so that will manifest itself, you can see right here. So really, that's kind of on the leading edge of this storm almost. So you're going to get a very big push of strong winds, very heavy precipitation, but that could lead to a weakening in this storm because what tends to happen is you get a big push of all that energy down out of the storm and then it starts to fall apart because it's kind of done its big push, its big parade, and then it kind of runs out of steam. Not saying that's guaranteed for this storm. Other times we'll see where this storm will weaken and then this will actually create new convection as it moves eastward. So that is a possibility as well. So we're going to continue to monitor this, and this severe thunderstorm warning again goes until 7:45. The rate at which this storm is moving, we may actually shake that off a little bit early. It's about 7:10 now. So that's going to continue on moving towards Blum, Rio Vista, Corsicana here. So that's kind of the main area, and we do have kind of this northern arm of the storm as well that will head towards the Godley Crescent area up in northwestern Johnson County. So this whole area is going to be involved in this storm. So this will move on eastward, and we could see more severe thunderstorm warnings from that. As I mentioned, we could see this storm start to weaken. We could see this outflow boundary create more storms, that is. So we have options. We have possibilities here in terms of what this storm could do. So let's put this back into motion here. The storm continuing to move on to the east. This leading edge, this outflow boundary, pushing eastward, and that is going to bring gusty winds as well. So if you're getting gusty winds in central Johnson County right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are getting the storms themselves. It's pushing eastward here, so I expect this to make it to Ellis County. Whether or not this activity will is unclear at this point. We're going to have to monitor this and see what this does. But there is, again, a threat of 70 plus mile per hour winds with this storm. Like I said, you'll hear some people say that hurricane force winds are possible. Category 1 hurricane starts at 75 miles per hour. So it doesn't, that's a very dramatic wording. It doesn't always mean it, but 70 miles per hour is enough to do damage. So we do potentially have damaging winds as a part of this storm. Hail is possible as well. Not really very significant hail at this point. Mainly going to be a hail risk with this storm in far western Johnson County and in parts of Hood and Somerville counties as well. So that's what we're looking at right now. As I mentioned, we look across the area, take a broader view of everything, and we're really not looking at much outside of our particular area. You can see one boundary here moving through, and I believe the front has already moved through, so this may be an outflow boundary or just kind of some kind of a push of colder air that's moving through. But this outflow boundary is the first thing you're going to notice, and I'd like to point out too that this storm near Godley, that is new convection from that outflow boundary. So we do have evidence of this outflow boundary creating new storms as it continues to move on to the east. And you can see a little bit of clutter here. This is the radar location. So right there near Burleson, you're going to see a little bit of a disruption in the line there. That is just because the radar tower can't look straight up.
Do you have a key to the shed?
Some of it's in the trash bags. It's kind of a mess in there, but got folks here. My good friend Rudy here looking at possibly doing some floor work here. So need to make sure they have what they need to do that. But this storm near Godley is new from this outflow boundary. So we do have new storms popping up. Now, we do have questions about whether this storm will survive long enough to make it into parts of Ellis County. So let's kind of take a look downstream, look ahead. This severe thunderstorm warning goes until 7:45. This storm will probably, as I'm seeing more of its its flow here, and Mark, I'm not sure if you're tagging somebody or asking, but that's not who I was talking about. So as this continues on eastward, we're getting to about 7:15 here, and so as that moves on, we will probably see that take most of this time. We may see another warning downstream. It kind of depends on what that decides to do. If the storm continues to maintain its strength, we also will have to watch the outflow boundary. Does the outflow reach Ellis County? I'm pretty certain that it will. I don't see this thing slowing down by the time it gets to western Ellis County. Will it make it all the way to Hillsborough? It's possible. Waxahachie, Ennis, Corsicana, we're going to have to wait and see. Unfortunately, this is one of those scenarios where we really don't know ahead of time what is going to happen. This storm could fizzle out before it even leaves this warning box, and we could just simply be watching that boundary to see if new storms develop. We could very well be looking at a situation where it continues on and defies all odds and creates a path through parts of Hill, Johnson, Ellis, and Navarro counties. We will have to watch and wait and see. That's the virtue of Texas weather sometimes. You kind of have to watch to see what happens. There's not a whole lot of heads up I can give outside of this warning box. I can tell you that parts of northern Hill County, Johnson County, western Ellis County. That's where we're watching for the outflow boundary. That could create more storms. But again, we're really not sure. This is kind of a wait and see deal. And I know that people hate that. People hate when I can't tell you far ahead of the storm exactly what it's going to do. But that's kind of just where we're sitting at. Jill, you're asking, is this a storm you were out watching? Or is this a new storm that came up and heading towards Ennis? Jill, I'm not really sure what you're talking about there. If you're talking about the stream where I was driving, we were just driving through some rain, so I haven't been out storm spotting or anything today, but this is a storm that was warned in the last several minutes that we've been watching, and I really don't know if it's going to make it to that area. Karen, you're saying there are some mean-looking clouds and big wind in Cleburne. That's the outflow boundary. These outflow boundaries can create pretty rugged clouds that can look pretty nasty, but they're what we like to refer to as SLCs, scary-looking clouds, but fortunately that's all they are. You're not getting the storm itself in Cleburne. You will see it off to the west, but what's moving through there right now, just a thus far harmless outflow boundary. They can create new storms that can become severe, so it could be the producer of something new, but for the moment, nothing to really be too worried about. The storm that is going on right now west of Cleburne, though, that does have a wind risk with it. As we've mentioned, we could be looking at winds of 70 plus miles per hour. We have a radar update here, so the storm continues on into parts of western, mostly southwestern Johnson County here, and then we continue to see more development just south of, just south of Godley there. It's kind of behind my little graphic there. So let me adjust that. So just south of Godley, that new storm beginning to intensify, so that could be more of a threat for the Keene area. But if you're in Blum, Rio Vista, that's probably where this storm is headed next. We are looking at a damaging wind threat. 70 plus mile per hour winds are possible with this storm. That can do damage. Let's take a look and see if we have an update on that velocity view here, kind of get an idea of what we're seeing. Strong winds possible. Now this storm near Godley, we are seeing stronger winds there as well. So we could see that storm become severe as well, but it does look like it's headed towards the severe box at the polygon is what I'm trying to say. Evie, you're saying we'll just pray it's going to be, it's not going to be bad at the B&B Theater in Red Oak for the new Twisters movie for your birthday. So Evie, if you're, I don't think Twisters is showing, it is showing at the B&B tonight in Red Oak. So some folks will be seeing the Twisters film for the first time. Not sure when I'll see that. I'm sure I'll get around to it eventually. But these storms are moving in, so you will need to pay attention. I guess if the Twisters movie is playing when a storm is going on, that might make for some interesting ambiance, but this storm is capable of producing damaging winds. It looks right now like it could be, that threat could be subsiding a little bit. We'll go down to the VIL, take a look at the hail risk, and that does look to be reducing as well. If we continue to see that trend, then it looks like we're probably looking at what I described earlier, where we see a big push from that storm, damaging winds, very heavy rain, small hail, and then it kind of diminishes from there. So we will see what this does. We will watch this storm. If nothing else, we could see this storm weaken and the new one start to take over, because we do have this storm that is quickly intensifying just to the south of Godley. So we're looking at wind in Cleburne reported 57.5 miles per hour. So 57 mile per hour winds reported in this storm in Cleburne. So actually that's going to be along the outflow boundary at this point. At least I'm fairly certain. It's really weird because this map does not put Cleburne up there. Now I know Cleburne is here because we have the airport and the hospital. So Cleburne here. So the storm has not made it to Cleburne. The outflow boundary has. Again, I really have no clue why Cleburne will not come up on this map. I mean, you can go down to the point where you can see different places within Cleburne, but this map does not list the town of Cleburne, no matter how much I zoom in. So it's really, really strange. But they've decided that Cleburne is not going to go on the map. But the Cleburne area, not in the storm yet, but you will see that on your doorstep and it could very well be moving in very soon. Here in the next several minutes. In fact, it looks like it probably will be. And if not the storm to the south, this new storm to the north looks like that might be where we're looking at all of this pulling through. So Rio Vista, Blum, Cleburne, these areas, you do have weather moving in. You do have storms. These are severe warned storms. At least this one is. This one isn't necessarily warned, but if anything, it's headed into the existing polygon here. So it would, if it's warned, probably going to just stick with the one they got until they need to possibly issue another warning. They got another 25 minutes on this polygon here, and so it kind of works out for them. This new storm would just be part of the existing threat area. But it does look like the main storm that prompted that warning, that had the 70-mile-per-hour wind threat, looks like that is beginning to subside here. So we could see that weakening a little bit. We'll see what that does with time, and that could reduce the threat there. I think for the moment we are seeing things on a weakening trend, but we'll have to watch and see if that continues as we get another update on the radar here, really probably momentarily. We should see that fairly shortly, I think, in that area. So I know a lot of people are interested in that new Twisters film. Here's the update. So the Twisters film, you'll have to let me know what you think of it. I've heard some back and forth a little bit already. So here's the two storms we're looking at. This storm moving into the Cleburne area now. This itself is not warned, but we have seen increasing wind speeds with that storm. This one to the south, this is the severe thunderstorm. This is the one that this polygon is covering. We've seen a history of 70-mile-per-hour winds possible with this one. That can create pretty decent damage. If we look at the velocity view here, and let's see, yes, that's the updated. So we are seeing winds come down in this storm. And this storm, the trend has kind of reduced a little bit. Erica Gutierrez saying, "I suck." Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. You're wrong, but you're okay. You're all right. We won't penalize you for that. So western Johnson County is seeing some gusty winds here, but I'm going to say at this point more 50 to 60 mile per hour, maybe on the top end, probably right around 50 miles per hour. That's definitely down from the 70 mile per hour possible wind gusts we were looking at earlier. Not quite as damaging. It may bring some limbs down and everything, and may displace a weak shingle or two, but 50 miles per hour is not going to do near the damage that 70 would. So we're going in a good direction here. I don't think anybody's going to be concerned about any of the rain that may come with this, but the fact that it is moving quickly does help with the potential flood threat here. And we will take a look at the hail threat. Definitely a lower hail threat, I think, at this point for this particular area. So it looks like the severe threat is diminishing here, is trending down. We'll have to watch and see if that continues, especially for this storm to the north. Our outflow boundary definitely not looking as intense as it was. I mean, we could be looking at a very quick tapering off of that. That would be interesting. It's also crossing over the radar, so then you're going to get some visibility issues with that. But we'll see what this does as it continues to push on to the east towards Ellis County. A couple of people asking about Venus. There's really nothing in Venus right now. Outflow boundary is headed that way, but these particular storms look like they will stay west of the Venus Alvarado area. As this continues on to the southeast, again, storms moving into Cleburne right now towards Rio Vista and Blum. Those are the areas that are next up for these storms. And aside from that, really not much else going on. We do have some storms farther to the west in far western Hood County, Toller and Lipan there, but not much outside of that. And the severe storm we did have is weakening at this point. So hopefully more beneficial rain and less severe weather for these areas. I don't think anybody can really argue with that. We are going to take all the rain we can get. We have multiple rain chances over the next several days. And I made a note on here. I want to see. Let's see what that says for. Okay. Yeah, I'm still not quite willing to put temperatures in the 80s for early next week. I think 90 degrees. Some of us may be held in the 80s, some maybe in the low 90s, but I think 90 degrees is going to be a good average for Monday and Tuesday, but that's better than the norm of 96 to 97 degrees, and definitely better than the hundreds that we've seen so far this week. So 90 degrees will definitely be an improvement, and we have a rainy period coming up, a rainy pattern coming in that will definitely help us as we get into the latter half of July. And I mean, this forecast goes out to starting the last full week of July, and pretty soon we'll be going into August. So any rain we will take, we will take it, or we can get, we will definitely take. We're in a much better position than we were last year, certainly much better than we were the year before, keeping off those drought conditions. And I don't think anyone is going to be opposed to that. So here's what we have. This is really it for our area right now. We don't have much else. Overnight tonight, we could have a few more showers and thunderstorms, depending on if we have outflow boundaries and those kinds of things at play. But for the moment here, I think really we're looking at, for the most part, I think we're going to see this activity move to the southeast. We'll have to watch and see if this outflow boundary creates more storms. But as that continues on to the southeast, I think that parts of Johnson and Hill counties will be mostly the beneficiaries of this as it moves to the southeast. The outflow will move eastward towards parts of Hill and Ellis counties, and we will see what that does over the next several minutes. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream here. I need to eat a bite for dinner here. I'm going to continue to monitor this, but this storm thus far does look like it's on a weakening trend. This severe thunderstorm warning, unless they cancel it early, does go for about another 20 minutes till 7:45. But stay tuned to South Metro Weather, and I will continue to bring updates throughout the evening.